Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars, and it's time for a Luthier's Quick Tip. If you'd like to support my guitar building YouTube channel, visit eguitarplans.com and buy a plan. A link is in the description below. Now on with the video. In this episode of Luthier Quick Tips, I'm going to give you some food for thought. The next time you're thinking about installing either a Floyd Rose or a Fender style tremolo into your guitar project. You see, one of the factors that people tend to forget is the depth of the tremolo block and how far down into the body that block is going to fit along with the springs. You see, if the body isn't thick enough, you could end up running into a problem trying to install a tremolo cover. You might even have a problem with that block sticking out far enough to where it comes into contact with your torso as you're playing the guitar. So let me bring you in a little closer, and I'm going to show you a graphic I created, which I think will help explain this a little more clearly. What you see here are 4 side views of a guitar. It's basically the same guitar, however, example C and D has a thinner body, and I'll explain that in a minute. But what I'm using as an example is the installation of a Floyd Rose tremolo, because the problems that you can encounter affect any kind of tremolo that uses a tremolo block. And in example A, we have a body which is 1 3/4 inches thick. And as you can see, when the tremolo is installed flush with the top surface of the body, the tremolo block will extend down into the body. However, both the block itself and the spring are enclosed or captured inside the body. Nothing is sticking out. It fits just fine. In fact, you could put a cover on this. You could even, if you wanted to, recess the cover if you wanted the surface of the cover to be flush with the back surface of the body. A lot of custom builders like to do that. So example A is pretty much the ideal of what you would want to achieve when installing a bridge that uses a tremolo block. In example B, we have the same thickness body, 1 3/4 inches thick. However, this time the Floyd Rose has been recessed down into the body, which a lot of builders like to do in order to get the action low enough to work with the neck they're using. In this example, however, we can see the tremolo block and the spring are starting to peek out the back of the body, at least the spring is. As a result, you're not going to be able to put a cover on the back of this guitar because it's going to interfere with the function of the spring. The spring is going to run into the inside back of the cover. So that's not going to work. And obviously you couldn't recess the cover either. You'd have a problem with this design. There's also the possibility that the spring and possibly the tremolo block will come into contact with your torso as you're playing, and that's going to affect the function of the tremolo as well as tuning stability. Now in example C, we have a 1.5 inch thick body. So instead of 1 3/4 inches thick, it's a thinner body. Even with the bridge mounted flush with the surface, the tremolo block is now extending so deep into the body that the spring is extending even further out the back. So that's going to cause a problem with interference, whether it's the cover or your torso. And then in example D, we have the same thickness, 1.5 inches thick, but this time the bridge is recessed down into the body of the guitar. As a result, the tremolo block is extending out the back of the body along with the spring, and this is really a worst case scenario. If this happens, you're going to have problems with both the tremolo block and the spring contacting your torso. You can't put a cover on it, and this leads to all sorts of problems when it comes to the playability of the guitar. So what can we do to avoid this potential problem? The first thing you need to do is plan ahead before you even start to build your guitar. You need to find out how tall the tremolo block is. And typically, tremolo blocks are anywhere from 32 millimeters at the minimum to 42 millimeters at the maximum. Oftentimes, that number is stamped on the bridge. If it's not, you can easily measure it with a ruler. But before you even buy the bridge, try to find out from the seller how tall that bridge is. And then you need to consider the thickness of the guitar body. When the bridge is installed, you want the bottom of the tremolo block to be inside the body by at least 1/4 of an inch. If you're going to recess your tremolo cover so that the surface is flush with the surface of the back of the body, you're going to have to, recess it by the thickness of the cover plate, and you're going to want to make sure that there's going to be enough clearance there to do that. If the guitar body is already finished and you've purchased a new tremolo for your guitar and you discover that the block is going to extend out the back, you can easily remove the tremolo block and replace it with a shorter block. You can purchase them individually and separately. If for some reason, even with the shortest tremolo block, you're still having a problem with clearance, it is possible to grind off some material from the end of the tremolo block, and you can even use like a metal cutting bandsaw, or I suppose you could grab a hacksaw and spend an hour or two cutting off 1 or 2 millimeters of the bottom edge of that tremolo block. But you can modify it to some degree in order to achieve the clearance that you need for your guitar. So that's this week's quick tip. Don't just assume that cool tremolo you just bought for your guitar is going to fit perfectly, especially if you're trying to make a really thin guitar, or if your guitar that you're modifying has a really thin body. You need to consider the depth of that tremolo block and then make the necessary adjustments in terms of its height or depth in order for it to fit properly and to function the way it was intended to. So hopefully that explains it. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, post them down below. If you don't subscribe, click that subscribe button so that you can watch all my videos as they're posted on the world of guitar building. And as always, if you want to show some support for what I'm doing here on YouTube, head over to eguitarplans.com and purchase a plan. So until the next episode, take care, and I will see you soon.